खुदा में रज़वी हो।
अहमद रज़ा का शमा, अहमद रज़ा का ताज़ा गुलिस्ता है आज भी।
सुभान अल्लाह, सुभान अल्लाह।
अहमद रज़ा का ताज़ा गुलिस्तान है आज भी, खुर्शीद इल्म उनका दरख्शान है आज भी। अहमद रज़ा का ताज़ा गुलिस्तान है आज भी, खुर्शीद इल्म उनका दरख्शान है आज भी। सब उनसे जलने वालों की गुल हो गए चिराग, अहमद रज़ा की शमा फरोज़ा है आज भी। बादे विसाल इश्क नबी कम नहीं हुआ, बादे विसाल इश्क नबी कम नहीं हुआ। रूह रज़ा हुजूर पे कुर्बान है आज भी, रूह रज़ा हुजूर पे कुर्बान है आज भी। आला हज़रत इमाम अहले सुन्नत मुजद्दिदे दीन व मिल्लत परवाना शान रिसालत अशाह इमाम अहमद रज़ा खान फाज़िल बरेलवी रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु is known, recognized and identified in the world as Imam Ahle Sunnat. He is known, well known, recognized, identified as the Imam of the entire Ahle Sunnat wal Jama'ah. And this distinction and this blessing which he received is from Allah through the grand court of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because in a time when the iman of the believers was being attacked, when the practices of the Ahle Sunnat wal Jama'at were being targeted and branded as being shirk and bid'ah, when the Muslims were told that there is no benefit of standing at the graves of their parents and raising their hands and making dua, and when it was being said that there is no faida, there is no benefit, in the sense that if you send salam from wherever you are, that the Nabi hears you, he can't hear you. When it was said that the beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam has no knowledge of the unseen, Allah forbid, then in a time like that, Almighty Allah sent a bright ray of light. Almighty Allah sent a personality who to the entire Ahle Sunnat wal Jama'at came as a protector and a defender. All the khankas of the world, especially in the Indo-Pak subcontinent at that time, were the target of the Wahhabis. And you would have noticed this very clearly when ISIS was running its rampage. And all these people, what they were doing when they were entering any place, they were first destroying the mazarat. Did you not see in Libya what they did to the mazar of Hazrat Sayyidina Imam Zarruq radiallahu anhu? And numerous other places. This started where? This started then. What you are seeing now is the mirror image of it. And at that time, if Sayyidi Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat radiallahu anhu did not take the stance that he took, then the situation today would have been much worse. Allah sent him to defend the practices of the Ahle Sunnah, the practices of the believers and the iman of the believers. Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat radiallahu anhu's way, today we call it Maslak-e Aala Hazrat. What does Maslak mean? The way, the path, the system. What was his path? What was his way? What was his system? It was the same system of the Sahaba Ikram Ridwanullahi ta'ala majma'in. It didn't differ in any way. In reality, Maslak Aala Hazrat, people misunderstand. They think it is something new. It is nothing new. It is the Maslak of the Ahle Sunnat wal Jama'at. It is only identified by the name Maslak Aala Hazrat. Because in every era, in every zamana, in every time, Almighty Allah sent somebody who became a means of recognition for His deen. So that the people will recognize this is the right way. Otherwise everybody claimed to be on the right path. So in that time, Almighty Allah sent Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat radiallahu anhu. And Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat radiallahu anhu, when he came, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him into this dunya, he came into the house of knowledge and wisdom. His forefathers, his father, his grandfather were great awliya and mashayikh. Okay? There's not enough time to discuss the details in a Jummah. But Allah had blessed his family. This family was a family of knowledge and wisdom. Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat radiallahu anhu was nurtured in the house of wisdom. He was nurtured in a home where day and night he was taught haqq and batil. That you must be able to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. You must be able to differentiate between who is a Muslim and who isn't. You must be able to differentiate between who is an ashik and who isn't. And this was in their nature. They were groomed in this way. Why? Because Allah Almighty chose him for this. He came to defend the deen of Allah and His beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to refreshen and to revive the deen, and that is why he is known as Mujaddid of the time. Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat Imam Ahle Sunnat radiallahu ta'ala anhu's entire life, if you study his entire life, you would see one thing, you would see numerous, he was a multi-dimensional personality. You will see numerous things. You will see numerous things. You will see that he was a faqih. He was an expert doctor, jurist. You get the doctors amongst the jurists, amongst the fuqaha. He was the expert of his zamana. If you looked at the field of hadith, then there was no muhaddis like him in his time. If you look at the subject of sirat, then the manner in which he explained the life of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his time, nobody else did. If you talked about, these are Islamic sciences. These are Islamic sciences, religious sciences. Where he was a muhaddis, he was a mufakkir, he was a faqih, he was an imam of his time. But if you looked at the worldly sciences, then you found Aala Hazrat was teaching the great mathematician Dr. Ziauddin about trigonometry. Okay? He was the person that disproved the theory of Albert Potter. He was the one who disproved the theories of other scientists like Newton. Look at the works of Aala Hazrat Adimul Barakat. Your mind will be baffled. One personality who was an expert in more than 54 different sciences of knowledge. Which university did he go to? Which university did he go to? Which college did he go to? He studied on the broken mat of his home, at the feet of his father and his forefathers. But how did he attain all of this? The answer comes from the tongue of Dr. Sir Ziauddin, the mathematician who had to come into the court of Aala Hazrat to solve his problems. What did he say? When he met Imam Ahle Sunnat radiallahu an, and after his problem was solved, he said, today I believe that there is something called ilm ladunni. Today I believe that there is something called inspired knowledge, which comes from the court of Allah, because a man who sat on a broken mat is telling me that which I had to go to Germany to solve. What is this? This is from the court of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People say, how is it possible for a man who did not go to any such institute, who did not go to any university, who did not go before such teachers or scientists or professors, to be able to have this kind of knowledge? How did he get all of this? Without comparison, countless times. A man who builds a computer can program it how he wants. He can make one more powerful than the other one. He can increase the RAM and the speed in one more than the other one. He can put some software into this which he won't put in that one. He is the one who invented it. He is the one who made it. It is his choice. Without comparison, Allah is the creator, the Khaliq and the Malik. He will make one Abu Jahl and he will make one Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. He can make one a Jahil of his time and he can make one Imam Ahmad Raza of his time. This is upon Allah Almighty. This is upon Allah Almighty. Because when you say that I attained this knowledge, I learned certain things, you only strive to learn it. It will not be in your heart until Allah doesn't put it there. A child who is becoming a Hafiz, ask the children who become Hufaz, ask our senior Hufaz, how much you learn to the Quran. You try your best to memorize, but it's not the power of your memory. That is only one part of it. It is the will of Allah. When Allah wills to put the Quran in your heart, He will put it into your heart. Otherwise, like you, the other intellects, who may sit for days on end, can't remember one ayat of the Holy Quran. And that's why I say to those who have the Quran in their hearts as well, that remember, Allah has blessed you with a powerful treasure. And your heart is a treasure chest, that you are able to keep the Quran in that heart. So what are you? Why are you a Hafiz? Because you are called a protector, yet the Quran is protected by Allah. The Quran is protected by Inna nahnu nazalna dhikra wa innahu lahafidhun. Allah is the one who revealed it. We have revealed it and we are the protector. But you are called a Hafiz if you have the Quran in your heart. Why you are called that as a protector? Because you have to protect the honor of that which is in your heart. You have to behave like that as well. Today is different, isn't it? But that Imam Ahmad Raza radiallahu anhu, if I ask anybody, Hafiz Sharif, how long it took you to become Hafiz? Anybody will tell you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And we still don't feel we finish because every year we have to make door. We have to do this. Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiallahu anhu became a Hafiz in 30 days. In 1 month, the Quran used to be recited to him for a short while before Salah. And he would listen and perform the same thing in Salah. Is this ordinary? This is not ordinary. This is extraordinary. This is because it is inspired from the court of Almighty Allah. Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat, if you look at the works, of Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat, radiallahu anhu, people don't know who is Aala Hazrat. People don't know. Aala Hazrat wrote on this 54 different sciences, and now the scholars are saying that it's not 54 sciences after doing research. They are doing in-depth research and they're saying hundreds of sciences. Because within each of those sciences there are more sciences. But he wrote more or less 1,200 books and treatises. In his short span of life, one book, let's leave everything. One book, Fatawa Razvi Sharif, today after being categorized, is more than 30,000 pages in 30 volumes. One book. You write your whole life, see if you can finish it. How is this happening? How is this happening? Why did this happen? How did he reach this level? Knowledge is one thing. A man can study his entire life. Let me tell you, talking about Aala Hazrat, let me tell you about his students. You're talking about Aala Hazrat radiallahu anhu? Let me tell you about his students and his khulafa, especially the greatest of his khulafa, Huzur Sadr Sharia, Badr Tariqa, Hazrat Allama Mufti Amjad Ali Al-Azmi radiallahu anhu, who is the father of Huzur Muhaddis Kabir. Allah Ta'ala Huzur Muhaddis Kabir ki umr mein barakat ata farmaye. Hazrat has not been well again for the last few days. We make dua that Allah grants him shifa kamil, sehat ajil, and keeps his sayah over our heads for a long time. Huzur Sadr Sharia. Now we are talking about the knowledge of Aala Hazrat one side for now. Huzur Sadr Sharia, the Khalifa who served in the court of Aala Hazrat. You know, this is piety. Huzur Sadr Sharia, Sadr Sharia was a very great alim, and so was his wife, Alima. But her adab for her husband, because of his khidmat in the court of Aala Hazrat, was that even if he came home at 2 in the morning, she would not touch a grain of rice or a piece of bread till her husband didn't come home. Allah. Allah. That Huzur Sadr Sharia, talking about Aala Hazrat writing volumes. I said Fatawa Razvi has only one book. Huzur Sadr Sharia used to make i'tikaf every year on the last 10 days of Ramadan. When he went into i'tikaf, see today when the youngsters go into i'tikaf, or many today, first make the arrangements for the food. Hota ki nahi hota? Now they say in the masjids, they got some masjids got special facilities, fridge, microwave, yeah, boy. Also that the mu'takif is comfortable. You never go there to be comfortable. You went there to drop yourself in the court of Allah. You went to seclude yourself, take yourself away from the dunya thing. People are sitting in the i'tikaf and busy on their WhatsApp chats. It's not what you went there for. You go there for seeking closeness in the court of Allah. And because you are a representative of your community, when you sit there, you are sitting on behalf of everybody there. For basic understanding, Aala Hazrat Adimul Barkat's great Khalifa Imam Sayyidina Imam Sadr Sharia Badru Tariqa radiallahu anhu would enter i'tikaf with pen and paper. What do you take and go? Pen and paper. Today they're not these pens that we're using. Fountain pen, dip in ink and write ink, and a fountain pen and paper. You will go into i'tikaf. 10 days. When he came out on the sighting of the moon of Eid, he would come out with one volume of Bahar-e Shariat. One volume of Bahar-e Shariat. In 10 days. If you look at the reference in every volume of Bahar-e Shariat, there are tens of books, scores of books, where if you look at the entire Bahar-e Shariat, where there are reference Alamgiri, Durr Mukhtar, Raddul Mukhtar, this, that, Shami, everywhere. References. In 10 days the man is writing all the masail with the references as well. What was this? This was the blessing of humbling yourself in the court of a personality who humbled himself in the court of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Aala Hazrat Adimul Barkat's Khalifa. This is the shan of the Khalifa, one of the Khulafa. Otherwise, if you look at Malikul Ulama Allama Zafaruddin Bihari radiallahu ta'ala and his mathematical skills, and the knowledge that he had, it will leave you boggled, mind baffled. If you look at his children, Huzur Hujjatul Islam, Allah had blessed them with such beauty, Huzur Hujjatul Islam, that when people looked at him, he was called Hujjatul Islam, the sign and the proof of Islam, because of his beauty. Because of his beauty, his knowledge was something else. His beauty. Huzur Sarkare Mufti Azam Hind radiallahu anh, the host of the Zamana, whose entire life was spent for the pleasure of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What were this? From where did all of them come? They were the blessings of that pious personality. Qutb Madina, the personality who was known as the Qutb of the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you know that status? Who was he? He was amongst those who was amongst the blessed Khulafa of Sayyidi Aala Hazrat Imam. Who was? Today we talk so much. When you speak about Africa and Islam, one name comes to your mind immediately. The roving ambassador of Islam, Hazrat Allama Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui Mirati radiallahu ta'ala. Don't we talk about it? For those who don't know, then there's a big problem. Hazrat Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui rahmatullah spread the work of Ahle Sunnat wal Jamaat to the nooks and corners of the world. His language was so pure in every speech language. He spoke so many languages. There were times that when he would speak English, the people of the country would need a dictionary in front of him. Okay? Hazrat Allama Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui radiallahu ta'ala, who was he? He was the Khalifa and Murid of Sarkari Aala Hazrat Imam. Okay? All these blessings that spread through the dunya in this era spread from the personality who sat on a broken mat. And he spread the love of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He taught us something very important. His entire life. You look at the works of Aala Hazrat, as I said, you will find in Fatawa Radhiyya thousands of masail. You look at Ad-Dawratul Makkiyah and you will find oceans of ilm ghaib flowing. You look at numerous of the works of Aala Hazrat radiallahu anhu and you will be amazed at the discussions. But you will find one thing unique in all his discussions. He's talking about tayammum, but in it is flowing the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's speaking about wudu. flowing with the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's speaking about janazah, flowing with the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His entire life went around the love of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because he knew, and they knew, the pious know, that if you want success in the court of your Rabb, then there's only one door. And that is the grand court of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why he said, Ba Khuda Khuda ka yahi hai dar. By Allah, this is the door to the court of Almighty Allah. Imam Ahmad Raza radiallahu an, Allah had blessed him with such wisdom and such knowledge, Allahu Akbar, that when he picked up his pen, do you know, great personalities, I shared something yesterday, and I'm going to share this with you also, that great personalities, very, very great personalities, like Hazrat Sayyidina Abul Hussain Ahmad Noori radiallahu ta'ala, very, very great personality. Hazrat Sayyidina Abul Hussain Ahmad Noori radiallahu ta'ala is that Mubarak Zat, is that Mubarak personality who is from the grand court of the Mashayikh and the Murshids of Aala Hazrat Imam radiallahu ta'ala, and he is the Murshid Kamil of Ghawsul Waqt, Huzur Mufti Azam Hind radiallahu an. That Hazrat Sayyidina Abul Hussain Ahmad Noori radiallahu an is that personality. Let me remind you, is that personality that when Sayyidi Aala Hazrat Azimul Barkat Imam Ahle Sunnat Ashah Imam Muhammad Raza Khan Fazle Barelvi radiallahu ta'ala an, when he went to become murid in the court of Sarkar Aale Rasul Maharervi radiallahu an. Mahar Sharif is a very Mubarak and a great darbar. There are 7 kutubs without a break under one roof in that darbar. Okay? 7 kutubs without a break under one roof in that darbar. When Aala Hazrat Azimul Barkat radiallahu anh went there to become murid, you heard this many times before. I'm repeating it for the sake of freshness of our love for those personalities who spent their entire lives in the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he went there, I'm being brief, as he entered Maharara Sharif, what did he say? He said, today I'm acquiring the fragrance of my Shaykh. Today I'm acquiring the fragrance of my Shaykh. And when he entered the Khanka, and Hazrat Sayyidina Shah Ali Rasul Maharervi radiallahu an saw him, he looked at him and he said, where have you been? Where have you been? I've been waiting for you all this time. Never met before. Still a young personality. Never met before. Seeing each other physically for the first time. Where have you been? And then took him into a blessed room and initiated him into the Silsile Aliyah Qadriya Barakatiyah. When he went into the room with his Murshid and he came out, then the great Mashayikh of the time saying that when they both walked out, we were wondering which was Ali Rasul and which was Ahmad Raza. The only difference was that one we could see was an elder and one was younger. Otherwise, he had become the replica and the mirror of the manifestations of his Shaykh. When they came out, Hazrat Sayyidina Ali Rasul Maharelvi radiallahu anh said, seated him and gave him all the different permissions, spiritual permissions, the khilafats and the ijazats and all the other blessings of the silsila. Sarkar Noor, Abul Hussain Ahmad Noori, who I am talking about. When he saw this happening, he is in that court, the personality that has been blessed with this excellence after Sarkar Ali Rasul Maharelvi radiallahu. He is sitting in the court of Sarkar Ali Rasul and he sees that khilafats and ijazats. Nowadays, sad to say, khilafat and this kind of thing has become very common. Many give it for the wrong reasons, just to increase followers. This is not what it is for. It is a spiritual mantle that it is given so that that person may fulfill the responsibility of the Kamil Shaykh. Not so that it's a title just by itself. So Hazrat Sayyidina Ali Rasul Maharervi radiallahu an is giving all of this, and Sarkar Noori Miya radiallahu an, he says, Huzur, it is the system of Marara, I'm being brief, that when anybody comes here, he has to make mujahada. In other words, he has to do spiritual exercises. Days on end by eating only dry bread and drinking water. He has to do certain spiritual exercises. Except his 5 daily salah, he has to do this, he has to do that, he has to do this. Numerous, and I'm not going to the detail because time won't permit. After that, if Maharara Sharif Mashayikh find that he is worthy and deserving, they'll give him 1 khilafat probably. And 1 ijazat. When Sayyidi Aala Hazrat gave Aala Hazrat khilafat, he gave him all the khilafats. All the salasil. Everything, all the ijazats. And he even said, whatever work I have done or whatever I have written, give it to him. If he decides to change anything in it, let him change it. If he wants to add anything, let him add it. Hazrat Noori Mian radiallahu anh said, Huzur, I am not understanding that this personality is such a young personality. He has just come, you just initiated him into the spiritual chain, and you have given him all these permissions on all these khilafats and all these ijazats. What is the difference between him and everybody else that comes here? He said, everybody else comes here to be prepared. Ahmad Raza has come prepared. Everybody else comes to be prepared. He has come prepared. All he needed was the spiritual nisbat. I have given him that. And then he said that every time and every night I used to weep in the court of Allah. Every night I would weep in the court of Allah. That when I leave this world, Ali Rasul Maharaj, the Murshid, he's saying about the person who just became his murid. Just became. I used to weep in the court of Allah that when I leave this dunya and I'm presented before my Rabb, and my Rabb says, Ali Rasul, what have you brought? What do I have to present in the court of my Rabb? A great wali of his time, the great Sufi of his time, an Imam of his time whose days and nights were spent following the pristine Sharia. To himself he's saying, I have nothing. Yet we today read 2 rakats, read 1 book and think that there's nobody like us. Think about these pious personalities, how humble they were. How they feared Almighty Allah. He said, I'm thinking, okay, what will I give on that day? What will I present in the court of my Rabb? What good deeds do I have? He said, every night I wept and I wept. What will be my hal? He said, today my heart is content. He said, today my heart is content. When my Rabb asks, Oh Ali Rasul, what did you bring? He said, I have brought Ahmad Raza. He said, I will present Ahmad Raza. The poet said it very beautifully, Roz Mahshar agar mujhse pooche Khuda. Bol Ali Rasul, tu laya hai kya? Arz kar dunga laya hu Ahmad Raza, ya Khuda ya amanat salamat. Qari Amanat Rasul had written the Sher PDBT, very beautiful couplet. Now I'm coming back to where I started. That this is the Sarkar Noori Mian. This is Hazrat Noori Mian, who asked this question to Hazrat Ali Rasul. He didn't ask it because he didn't know. He asked it so one day, people sitting here will know. We will know. He asked so that that answer of Sayyidina Ali Rasul may be spread through the dunya and people may know the status of that personality. What does that Noori Mian say? Today there are people who want to make ikhtilaf with Imam Ahle Sunnat. They want to have different views. They say our research now is much deeper. Let me tell you what Noori Mian said. Not you and I. He said, it is my policy, Hazrat Sarkar Noor. He says, it is my policy that the moment Maulana Ahmad Raza Khan Sahib confirms any ruling, my heart immediately becomes content. My heart immediately becomes content with it. And he says, and numerous, after saying this, he says, my heart becomes content with it, and numerous incidents relating to his in-depth research and observations have caused such a condition, this condition, that there is no need for any further evidence when that which he has ruled has been written down as a response to any query. In other words, once he has written it, that is the dalil for us now. That is the dalil. That is why Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat was known as the Chashm Chiragh of the Khandan-e-Barakat. That is why he was known as the fountain, the eye and the lamp. There are numerous different meanings of that great and Mubarak household, of the Sadat, of the beloved family of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiallahu anhu's entire life was spent for the pleasure of the beloved, for Allah and His beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam. And this should be a very important lesson to us, because Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat did all of this, but with this he never allowed a single letter to be spoken, one word to be spoken against the shan of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today people befriend the Wahhabis, Deobandis, the Najdis, the Razvis, the Tabzilis, the Tahiris, and this is Sulh Kulliyat. These are being agents of unholy unity. when you're trying to unite Pak with Napak, when you're trying to be, and people remain silent, that's the sad part about it. Aala Hazrat radiallahu anh, if he remained silent, when all these attacks were happening on the Ahle Sunnat wal Jamaat, aaj hamara hal kya hota? What would have been our condition today? He didn't remain silent, he spoke the truth. He stood for what is haq. Why? Why? Because it is Hadith Sharif, and I end with this Hadith Sharif. This Hadith Sharif, it is reported on the authority of Hazrat Sayyidina Abu Sa'id Al-Khudri, radiyallahu ta'ala an, that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, he from amongst you who sees an evil should change it with his hand. When anyone from amongst you sees anything wrong happening, what he should do? If he has the power to do it, he should change it with his hand. And then he said, and if he does not have the ability to do this, then he should change it by means of his tongue. What it means, you should speak against it. You must say that this is wrong. This is not in connection with the deen of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and if he does not even have the capacity and the ability to do this, then he should at least think of it as wrong in his heart. At least think of it as wrong in his heart. And this is the weakest form of Iman. To just think in your heart. But Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiallahu anh acted against it immediately. And if he didn't act against it, today we would have not been able to recognize those who are trying to steal the Iman of Ahle Sunnat wal Jamaat. So we have a great responsibility. We have a great responsibility to pay tribute to Imam Ahle Sunnat, Aala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiallahu anh. Today the door of the Darbar of Sarkar Khaja Karibun Nawaz is open to us because of Imam Ahmad Raza radiallahu anh. Today the Urs of Sarkar Gausi Azam is with the Shan because of the fatwa of Imam Ahmad Raza radiallahu anh. We should be fortunate. We should be fortunate to understand that Allah has given us nisbat to this personality who took us at the feet of the pious servants of Allah, who brought us at the court of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said that this is that court of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if the entire world strives to get the pleasure of Allah without this court, they will not go nowhere. And he said that, what did he say? He said, Khuda ki raza chahte hai do alam. Khuda ki raza chahte hai do alam. Khuda chahta hai raza Muhammad. Allah give us tawfiq khair and allow us to understand. As I said before, Aala Hazrat is not just a personality, he has now become a subject. It's a topic of discussion, and the subject needs a lot of time. And may Allah give us barakat in our time. We'll discuss it in some other time, inshallah al-azim. Allah keep us with Iman, let us leave the world with Iman. Those who are ill, Allah give them shifa, kamil, sehte ajil. Those that have passed away, Allah exalt them in Jannatul Firdaus. Those that are going through any difficulties in their lives, may Allah remove them from the difficulty amongst the Ahle Sunnat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the Muslims of Palestine, India and everywhere else where they are going through difficult times. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to make tawbat and nasuha, and may Allah grant us the tawfiq to respect and honor our parents.